You're now watching the Danny Mac Podcast on the Bet Rivers Network.
Welcome back to the Danny Mac Podcast on the Bet Rivers Podcast Network. And I bet you think I'm ready to get after the Bears and Chargers. No, hold the phone. The Bears are 2-5, okay? And the Chargers are slipping. I want to talk White Sox. That's right, White Sox. And no, I don't want to talk about Chris Getz and what the Sox are going to do this offseason. I want to go down memory lane because White Sox fans, you deserve this after the last couple of seasons. You deserve a 20-05 World Series celebration, and we got one of the heroes on to do that with us. It's our pleasure to welcome Game 3 hero Geoff Blum to the podcast, my favorite sociology major in the history of Major League Baseball. How are you, Geoff? Thanks for your time, man.
I'm doing extremely well. It's good to be on with you, and anytime I get a chance to reminisce about '05, I am greatly appreciative of it.
How did it change your life becoming a World Series champion?
Oh man, in plenty of ways, to be totally honest, because it was an interesting year. I had signed with the San Diego Padres. My wife was pregnant and eventually gave birth to our triplets that same year. And then I got traded from a first place team in San Diego to a first place team in the Chicago White Sox. So there was ample opportunity to go to the postseason for me that season. And just so happened that I got traded at the deadline in that blockbuster deal, tongue in cheek when I say that, but going to the Chicago White Sox, and obviously history was made with the opportunity I got in Game 3. But, as far as my career, I think, it didn't validate it, but it did give me a certain amount of legitimacy, saying that I was a World Series champion. I think it probably gave me a couple extra years on the end of my career. And then also the financial opportunity, having 4 girls going into college and paying for tuitions as we speak, that World Series bonus helped out a little bit, get my girls started in college.
Awesome. You're part of a really cool list, and maybe the list begins with Don Larson with a perfect game in the World Series and Buddy Biancalana, and there's Geoff Blum with his rocket to right at Minute Maid Park. Let's go to that 14th inning if we can. It's probably around 1:00 in the morning. That was the only game of the series I missed. I was watching at the hotel waiting to go to bed, and you got 2 outs. And Ezekiel Estacio is on the mound, and he gets behind you 2-0 in the count. Did you golf ball 3 into the bleachers, Blum?
You know what? It was pretty interesting because, Ezekiel Estacio is a sinker ball pitcher. He just got Paul Konerko hit into a double play to get those 2 outs. And as I'm walking to the plate, I'm still trying to devise a game plan because in my head on deck, I was thinking about having to bunt with Konerko and Jermaine Dye on base. So I had to kind of shift gears a little bit. My idea when I was digging into the box was I've got to find a way to get into scoring position, just hit an extra base hit, find a way to get on base, and then get myself into scoring position because I believe Joe Creedy was right behind me, Aaron Rowan behind me again. So we had some thumpers in that lineup that could have turned that game around. But as I stepped in, I said, I'm going to force this guy to throw me a strike. For a couple of reasons. I wanted to see a strike, to be honest with you, because it'd been 21 days since I had an at-bat. And the other one was I figured this might be my only time to be on TV. So I needed some physical proof that I was actually going to be in the World Series. So I took the first pitch. It was a good 1.5 foot outside. I said, I'm going to take until I get that strike. Of course, the second pitch is another 1.5 foot outside. And it was really interesting to me because I knew that the Astros were going to throw me that fastball away because I had spent 2 years with them. They knew I could turn on a fastball inside no matter the velocity. So they wanted to stay away from the ability for me to do damage in that ballpark. But as the baseball gods would have it, Ezekiel Estacio pulled that sinker to the inside corner down, and that was my happy spot. And I was able to get the bat head out in front of the pitch a little bit, elevate it, and hit a rocket, like you said, into the right field bleachers, and the rest was history.
And the White Sox would add an insurance run. Chris Widger draws a bases-loaded walk. And that's what's cool, I think, about that game. Geoff Blum and Chris Widger, Przinsky's backup catcher. That was emblematic of the entire year. You guys had a roster full of players and a bullpen that was just stacked, even though the starting staff didn't allow it to get any action in the ALCS. I think Neil Kotz got one out in the entire series. But what a team effort it was that year from start to finish.
No, it really was. And what was great is, being traded at the deadline, being the new guy in the clubhouse, they welcomed me in, shook my hand and said, we got a job to do and you're a part of this team now. So they absorbed me into that atmosphere and I loved it. And to your point, having Widgie, walk that run in, catch Burley to finish off that game, it really kind of resonated with me because we if you watch some of the replay, you'll see Willie Harris holding up the number 4. And that's because all the rejects on that team were hitting in group 4. And that was myself, Chris Widger, Willie Harris, and Pablo Ozuna. And we actually had a chance to have an impact on that game because, like I said, I hit the home run. Widger walked in a run, the insurance run. And then the next day, Willie Harris pinch ran and scored on Jermaine Dye's base hit for the only run in game 4 to get that sweep. So we took a lot of pride in knowing that we were good enough to be on that ball club and have an impact. But to your point, it took all 25 guys to go out there and win that World Series.
Rumor had it Mark Burley already was started on the barley malt down in the bullpen and had to take his tennis shoes off and put his spikes back on to get that save.
Yes, yeah. There's no better pain medication than a couple of frosty ones to keep you nice and loose. And I'm sure he was pretty loose by the time he came into that game. But that was kind of the nature of the beast of that game, is the fact that we just kept finding a way to stay in a tie. But eventually, arms start to go by the wayside, and Burley was the guy that was out there, and he actually offered to go out there and pitch. And to his credit, he went out there and did the job. But at the same time, that was not an uncommon pattern to have a couple of starting pitchers maybe a little tipsy by the end of the ball game. There were some games you'd come in and get in that high 5 line and they just swing and miss because they had a couple.
Yeah, Freddie Garcia was known to have a few vodkas now and again. It was a fun team. How much did that team need A.J. Przinsky, though, to have a little bit of an edge to it?
You know what? I think, there were a couple of guys with some edges on there. I mean, I think Jermaine Dye played the game as hard as anybody I was ever with. Paul Konerko is probably he's got one of the best work ethics that I've ever seen in my life. Joe Creedy's got a little bit of funk to him over there at third base. Aaron Rowan. I mean, these were guys that got after it on and off the field. And then you say, guys like A.J. Przinsky, he had this persona of being that WWE heel. He liked being that guy. He liked being the one that everybody booed when he came on the field or did something crazy. So there was that little bit of a deflection, in his ability to just kind of take the spotlight in times. Carl Everett was another guy. That dude played angry and he was productive. So it was kind of this beautiful mix of just personalities, both on and off the field, that kind of exuded itself when that light switch came on. We had this amazing ability to just all of a sudden become this one unit that knew that we were going to go out there. And if it wasn't AJ going to get it done, it was going to be Aaron Rowan or Scott Podsednik. It was crazy. Aguchi. I mean, everybody had a part to play on this team when that game started. That was probably the most fun I had, was watching everybody do, kind of in unison doing their part.
The White Sox won the championship in one game more than the minimum. Only the Yankees of 2000 had accomplished that prior to your White Sox. Winning, you learn when you get older. You might not have realized it at the time. Maybe you did. I'm not sure how you're going to answer this question, but the White Sox have won 2 playoff games, I think, since that 4th game, the clincher. The Willie Harris touching the dish to win that game 1-0. It is so damn hard to win a World Series, isn't it, man?
It's extremely hard. And you know what? There's a lot of people, if you go back and you look at probably in spring training at that White Sox team in 05, you're not saying, well, this is a team that can win it all. But you've got to stay healthy. You've got to overachieve a little bit in certain areas. And you've got to have some key role players go out there and do a job. And that's exactly what we had happen in that 05 series. But it's interesting that you say that, because that postseason, we swept through the Boston Red Sox, the reigning World Series champions. We lost the first game to I don't know what they were at the time, Los Angeles Angels, Anaheim Angels, whoever the heck they were. And then we sweep them in 4 straight complete games, which is an oddity in itself and will probably never be matched again in this current day of baseball. And then we go to the World Series and sweep. We went 11-1 in that postseason, and it hasn't been until I've watched this current Astros team for the last 11 years and realizing what they've done for the last 7 years, going to 7 American League Championship Series, being in 4 World Series, winning 2 of them. But there was a lot of talk in 2022 how they swept through the division series, swept through the championship series, and we're in the World Series. And everybody's going, this has never happened. And I thought about it. They lose 2 games in the World Series to the Philadelphia Phillies. And all of a sudden you started to see that 05 team kind of come into the talk a little bit. They win 11-1. And it's not until, what are we, 18 years later, where I sit back and go, damn, we were damn near dominant in that whole postseason. It was incredible what we did.
Those 4 consecutive complete game victory. I don't know if we'll ever see one complete game in a World Series. I don't think that's a stretch. Do you, Jeff?
No, not at all. No, I've watched it, and I've had the chance to watch Dusty Baker kind of, that old school mentality of you're my best option. I'm going to put you out there for 6-7 innings until you can't give me anymore. And then I'm going to go to my bullpen. And even with that being done, you don't see those guys. We had a no-hitter in 2022 through 5 or 6 innings, and he pulled that pitcher. So you're not going to see it too often anymore. These guys nibble. They don't attack the zone as often as I think guys did early on in the 2000s and obviously the 90s and 80s, but really attack the zone and kind of economize their pitches to get deeper in ball games, because nobody wants the 100-pitch plateau has become that limit. And so I don't think we'll ever see that again. That was one of the more remarkable things. After the first 2 complete games, you're going, damn, this is insane. And then all of a sudden you finish it off with Jose Contreras going out there and finishing off that game 5. It was remarkable to watch.
Yeah, and I look the fool. I've been buddies with Dan Patrick for a number of years, and it was my first visit on his then radio-only show. And he said before the ALC asked Jeff, what's the key to this series? And I said, Bobby Jenks. America doesn't know Bobby Jenks.
Well,
he
you would
never
think, yeah.
touched the goddamn ball. He didn't get it once.
Yeah,
not once.
Yeah, you never saw Ozzie go out there tall and wide. He didn't have to do it that time in those 4 games.
Jeff, you hit 99 career home runs, none bigger than the one on the 25th of October in 05. Last thing I have for you, what's the most unusual or oddest, unexpected phone call or congratulatory message you might have received? Now, this is pre-social media, so people didn't have the access to you professional athletes then as they do now, but was there a correspondence you got from somebody that just knocked you out of your chair?
There's been quite a few. Now that I'm on the media side, it's kind of interesting running into a lot of people. I can't remember names, to be honest with you, but I know that there have been moments that have caught me off guard from, beat writers around the country, or a play-by-play guy in the Northeast that all of a sudden kind of comes over and goes, hey, Jeff, man, 2005, thank you for doing what you did, because that was the greatest moment of my fandom, because I'm a huge White Sox fan. There's actually quite a few White Sox fans out there, but, it was just a lot of fun to get a lot of that. The things that kind of blow my mind are, the fans that still come up to autograph shows when I show up in Chicago and say, hey, you know what? You gave us an opportunity to witness something we'll probably never see in our lifetime again. My dad passed away 2 months after the World Series championship. Stuff like that kind of resonates. And now watching what the Astros are going through and realizing how rare it is to win a World Series makes me appreciate it that much more. But every fan from Chicago to LA to New York, if they have this closet kind of like shyness about being, hey, I'm a White Sox fan, they're more than happy to come up and have the conversation with me. And I'm proud of the fact that we won it on that South side. I think it's a great thing.
Thank you for affording me a little bit of a baseball indulgence. I hope you White Sox fans enjoyed that. I know I did. And I know I'm a football guy. I always will be. But I'm watching very little of these baseball playoffs. I admit it. I don't have to. Adam Delavitt usually asks me to talk about the greatest game ever invented, football, and I'm going to do that right now. I want to remind you can get extra value this football season. With Bet Rivers Squares, you can win up to $10,000 in bonus money. Bet $10 in same-game parlays with the Squares icon. to earn a square. Why are the Bears such big underdogs in Los Angeles against the Chargers? Does that strike you as odd, or do you think that number 8.5, 9 is where you expected it to be? I'm not so sure I trust anything about the Los Angeles Chargers right now. And my want is to call them the San Diego Chargers, because every time I see that powder blue, and we'll see it Sunday night, they always wear the powder when they play on an island game, a national televised game. I always think of the Chargers. They'll always be San Diego to me. I don't think they're any good. I was expecting them to be good, and what the Bears have done defensively these last couple weeks has made me think they can play with the above-average offenses. Washington, not an above-average offense, bad offense, okay? The Vikings, while it has some pretty big names on it, they didn't have Justin Jefferson when they faced the Bears. They went 2 out of 13 on third down. The Broncos didn't come to Soldier Field several weeks ago in week 4 with a prolific offense. And, of course, the Bears win this past week against a hapless Las Vegas Raiders team. That offense has been anemic for 5 weeks. And when will they start to howl, if they haven't already, for the head of Josh McDaniel? You got to pop this guy, man. There are some NFL head coaches right now who just don't really have any good argument that they should be getting another chance after this season. And Chargers coach Brandon Staley is one of them. He is one of those guys who insists on thinking with little Brandon instead of his brain. He's more balls than brains. He likes to go for it on fourth down at his own 37, 38-yard line, 4th and 2 in the first quarter of a game. He has passed on opportunities to kick field goals and extend leads because he's greedy. When he has a full complement of healthy players offensively, the Chargers can be a formidable group. They've got Justin Herbert has what it takes, but he is doing it a lot all by himself. The running game with Austin Eckler has been sketchy. They always have injuries to their 2 wide receivers. One of them is always hurt, Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. One of the 2 is always in the tub with Delma Huddle. For those of you who know the movie North Dallas 40, you get my reference there. The tight ends are okay. Donald Parham Jr. and I can't think of the other cat's name, number 7, I want to say. Wear a tight end's number, and then I'll remember your name as well. But I don't get this number. I don't get a lot of numbers in this here National Football League. What did you learn last week in the NFL? Did you reach any conclusions? Whether it's Bears or anything else, I learned these things. Detroit, Miami, not as perfect as we thought. Miami getting its ass kicked as convincingly as it did, I think, is a good thing for them. I think they have been cruising against inferior opponents. They needed to get punched in the face, and boy, did they. That was not a thing. And Detroit got absolutely wiped out by Baltimore, which has resurrected its season after a bumpy start. And I won't write off, maybe I said this last year, I won't write off a John Harbaugh team in September ever again, because the Ravens, and this is something else I learned last week, the Ravens are a worthy division title contender. And the Steelers, maybe they are too. Maybe I didn't give Pittsburgh enough credit. They went into L.A. and popped the Rams this week. Looking forward to seeing if Kenny Pickett can continue the magic. What else did I learn? Man, that dude in Denver, Kareem Jackson, is the dirtiest mother effer who plays in the NFL. I'm glad he got a 4-game suspension. His hit on the Packers receiver was indefensible. Head-to-head, clearly, he targeted. I don't like to say that too often because it's difficult to determine intent. But with Jackson's history, and I was watching it live action, and I'm like, there's no way they aren't going to they aren't going to flag him and probably eject him, which was a surprise to the guys who were calling the game. I didn't find there to be any debate over it. I thought that was absolutely a match penalty foul, as they say in soccer or in the great game of hockey. What else did I learn? The Raiders suck. I mean, you knew that. They were so listless. Their body language in the first half this past week was just dreadful. So sorry I didn't pound the Bears heading into that week. But, man, we're here for week 8. I'm ready for all of it because I love the National Football League, and that starts tonight. Don't forget to get busy on your Bet Rivers app. And if you've not signed up, do so right now. There's bonuses. There's all kinds of ways where you can earn cool dollars for your effort. The work you put into being a football fan, slaving away in front of a hot 60-inch 4K TV all day, every Sunday. Take advantage of it. Thanking Geoff Blum for guesting with me today on the podcast, as well as my executive producer, Sam Michael, for helping, as he always does, and Adam Delavitt, the director at Bet Rivers Podcast Network, Randy Merkin in the bookings department, Troy Mocker, Alex Pastor, everybody who helps out in a behind-the-scenes capacity. I am enormously grateful. Thank you for listening, and please subscribe if you've not done so already. I'm Dan McNeil. Have a great weekend. I'll be back Monday early for another edition of the Danny Mac Podcast.